Hey y'all, how's it going today? What I was thinking of doing is attempting to do a build video, but I'm not sure how well this is going to work out because I don't have the best camera setup. So we're going to just give it a whirl and we're going to see how it goes. Our project is going to be this 2020 Chevy 2500 HD, and we are going to put it on this Greenlight dually chassis. Basically going to do a cab swap, but it's going to take a little bit more work than that. We're going to cut the running boards off because this setup doesn't quite fit everything, so it's going to take some cutting and some hacking to make it work. So we're going to cut the running boards off, and then when we're ready we will glue them back on. So I guess to get started you got to pop the rivets. The one in the back there by the spare tire, one in the front behind the front bumper. So what I use is a drill, obviously. I have an old base. This one is actually from a 66 Bronco. The reason I keep these is some of these diamond plate ones, I like them. You never know when you might be able to use that for something, so I keep 3 or 4 of these around. But today what we are going to do is we're going to use it as a catch basin to catch all the shavings from our drilling. So I just use my DeWalt drill. I have a 1/8 inch bit. Let's get this back where you can see it. And then when you're drilling this, a lot of people think you got to go real fast, but if you have a sharp bit, it only takes a couple seconds. You go real slow. What I do is just wiggle the truck around a little bit. That gets all the way around the edges of the rivet. And before you know it, it'll pop. These Ertls take a little longer because they have a bigger rivet in them. But the Greenlights, you'll see here in a second, the Greenlights pop real fast. Again, you just keep working that drill around in there. You don't have to go fast. See right there? That's what we're looking for. Is that little ring. That tells you that you just got the edge of the rivet out. I just dropped it on my table. So we have a nice clean hole there. That one should pop pretty easily. There, it already popped. It went to bumper. Alright, just turn it around and do the front, do the same way. Again, speed is not an issue here, mostly because you don't want to screw around, slip, and run this drill through your hand. Just slow and easy. Keep working it around. There we go. Got the ring. You sit there again. That's what we're looking for, is that ring. That's the edge of your rivet. Alright, so now Chevy is now popped. May still take a little working to pop that off there, but we're free. There we go. So we're going to set this chassis down because we are not going to use that for anything. And then what we'll do is we'll just cut this bed right behind this body line right here. There's like 3 body lines there you can see. This is the body line we're going to shoot for, and it's going to cut right down through this step. And we'll just cut that off on both sides. And if we do it right, the back of this bed will come off with it, and it'll just be all one bed. So now, onto the Greenlight. These Greenlights are a lot easier to pop, mostly because the rivets are a lot smaller than they are on the Ertls. It's already popped. These Greenlights, they go fast. And this center one, this one really goes fast. And again, it only takes a few turns on your drill, and it's off. It's popped. Just go slow and easy. Don't be in a rush. This is one area you don't want to be in a rush, especially on the truck you want to reuse the chassis on. You don't want to damage it. If you go too nuts with it, the drill cocks sideways, it knocks a big hole in the bottom of your chassis. Then you're kind of screwed. So see how easy? Popped apart real easy. Now, to get the bed off, you'll see there's 2 rivets here. Sometimes they smash this rivet down, sometimes they don't. This time they didn't do that. It's just a pin this time. So we got just 2 more rivets here to pop loose. And these, again, these go fast too because they're not very big. Okay, there we go. We're loose. It's that easy. That took all of, what, a minute? Okay, so there's our bed. There's our chassis. And this is our truck we're going to put on that chassis. And as you can see already, next problem we're going to have is these fender wells, they have to go. So, the best way to get those off, I use a pair of really thin side cuts. I don't know if it's going to focus in on those. Yeah, really thin pair of side cuts. If you can't find them anywhere, try Hobby Lobby. You can get them there, or a normal craft store. But it's real simple. What we're planning to do is right here where the fender touches the bottom, we're going to cut that off all the way around. And we want to cut it off flush. I know my fat fingers. Flush all the way across there. And it only takes a couple seconds and a few clips. A little snip there. A little snip there. I'm going to come around the front. Do a little snip there. Come over here. Do a little snip there. There it goes. So now we're off. And you want to be careful when you're doing this, because as you can see, oh, this one's different. Some of them, they run the wheels through the chassis here. I think mostly like on the other trucks. I don't know why that one's so low. That's odd. But that's a good thing. It means we don't have to worry about the wheel. Cutting it too low where the axle comes out. That's what I was trying to get at, but we don't have that issue with this truck. So again, now we want to finish cutting off this other fender, which only takes, like I said, a couple seconds. Come around the front, a couple snips. Okay, now it's off. So now we got those off. Now we cut this off, because this is going to cause a problem because of the placement of the other rivet. The other rivet is a lot longer than what the one on the green light cab is. The green light cab is way up here, where the one for the Ertl comes way down here. So what we have to do here is we need to cut this piece off. As you can see, it's not very big. Your snips, they'll cut that right off. Just give it a little twist there, a little pull. Don't try to cut it all at one time with these cheap ones here you get from Hobby Lobby, because you will break them. All right, that piece is on the floor. I'll pick it up later. All right, so now we got that cut off. Next step is getting this all to fit down on here. And as you can see, that is going to be in the way. This whole front black piece needs to go, or we're not going to set it down on there. And we already have to narrow the chassis to get it to fit on the truck. So that's why what we'll do is we'll cut these running boards off, and then when we're done cutting and hacking and making this fit, then we'll put those back on. So now that most of our drilling is done, let's clean up our mess here. Very minimal mess since we used our shavings tray. Alright, don't need that anymore. Don't need the parts for this cab right now. The only thing we're going to do with that cab is we're going to take the mirrors off of it. Get rid of these fender pieces. Don't need that bumper anymore. Okay. So now we're down to cutting the fenders off of this chassis. Or I'm sorry, cutting the running boards off this chassis. And what I use, I'm old school. I use a X-Acto knife. You get them just about anywhere. I use the number 2 blades just because those are the ones I like the best. Now what we're trying to do is we're trying to run our knife right along the base of the silver part. That's all you want to cut off is the silver part. And you want to put your knife at kind of an angle so it just cuts a little better. You don't want to try to cut all the way through. You just want to score it 4 or 5 times, bend it over and snap it off. And you want to do this very slowly, very lightly, and I know I'm not going to get this to where you can see it, and I apologize. But your first score, you just want to very lightly drag your knife across the bottom of the running board, all the way to the end. Second score, give it a little pressure. Third score, a little more pressure. Let me get it back in the slot. Always make sure you stay in the same slot. This way it comes off perfectly evenly. So that's 4, there's 5, and it's pretty much loose. All we have to do is, there's a little spot right here. Just wiggle your knife down to make that cut in. And now push up on the running board, and now it's off. Get a nice even cut along the top so that when we're ready to glue this back on, it gives us something to glue with, and we didn't damage it in any way, and it came off in a few seconds. Again, you want to make sure that your knife is extremely sharp, so therefore you need to be extremely careful you don't cut yourself, because you put a little pressure on one of these razor knives and they will cut a finger completely off. Okay, so that one I pushed a little harder to get done a little faster. Now I just got to score it, and I forgot to cut back here. Probably need to make one more good score there. You got to also be careful, if you pull it too hard, you'll pull your knife into your tire and you'll slit your tire. That's something you don't want to do. Okay, so there. Now that one's off. So now our running boards are off. Now we can try again to fit. As you can see, we're going to have to cut some off of this chassis to get it to set down inside of the frame of that truck. And again, there, what we'll do, we'll just take our cutters, and what I like to do is just go all the way back to the frame. Cut it all the way back here to the frame on both sides. It'll be a little bit narrow, but it won't be that bad. I think it just looks a little better to cut it back to the frame. We might not do that this time, just because this is a hollow truck. There's no interior, so if you cut that back too far, then it probably won't look right. So maybe we won't do that. So that's the start here, guys. I know I'm already 13 minutes in and I haven't even gotten anywhere. So that's why I wasn't sure about doing these videos. I'm going to try to edit this a little bit. We'll see what happens. I'm not much for editing. But that's the first installment there. I will get back here with another one here shortly. Bye. Alright, guys. Trying to make this video as short as possible. I've already gone ahead and I've done a couple of things to help speed things along. So I did a little trimming on the chassis here a little bit. I did a little too much. You got to be careful with that. Sometimes you go a little too far, like I did, but we can fix that. I cut the bottom of this rivet off, the part that goes through the chassis, because it was in the way. This windshield post right here, I trimmed it down some so that it would set a little bit flusher on the frame. Oh yeah, and I also cut the whole front end off of this chassis. So now it fits under the truck a little better. You can see I cut just a little bit too much off of this side. But she sets down on there pretty good. You have to excuse, that's just dust. So she sets on there pretty good. I like the height. I think that'll look good. Now what the thing is it sets down in the back. That's an easy fix because it has a post here in the back from the back window. So all you do here is I'm using some polystyrene. I'm not exactly sure the thickness on this, but it's pretty thin. I would say this is probably 0.020 because the package came with 3 pieces and this is the piece I used the most. This is the middle piece So it's like 0.20. Anyway, we're going to cut a couple pieces of that, and we'll stick it underneath where this window comes down. And you want to keep it pretty much inside of the cab, because when you put the bed on, you don't want the bed to sit on that, because the bed is already going to be high enough. We don't want to make that any higher. The other thing I had to do, as you can see, I did a lot of hacking on this bed. There are two rails here that line up with the back of where the mud flaps go. So what I had to do is basically I had to slide the bed back from its original position to make this cab fit on here without having to cut the chassis. So I had to grind some of the pieces off here in the front. You can see what I cut off. There was the center pin and the two pieces that held the bed straight flush to the toolbox. That makes sense? A lot of hacking here, guys. So what that may end up doing is I'm going to slide the bed back just a little bit to get that cab on there. That may cause a problem, as you can see, with our trailer hitch now. So that may be something we may have to take off and redo. But with the bed on there, now it looks pretty good. You have to leave a little bit of the bed, as you can see. You got to leave just a little smidgen of the bed, mostly as a filler, so that when it goes up against the cab or the bed, it's nice and flat and you don't have that big gap in there. And obviously we want that on both sides. So we got to do a little fidgeling here. There we go. Now we're better. So yeah, that's just more of a filler. And then we'll put something, try to put something in there to cover that hole with. But we'll see. We'll see how that works out. So that's what I did. I did a little hacking on this. I did some hacking on this. So now what I got to do is I got to put a shim in here. And the way you determine that is you look at the bed, and as you can see, it sets back just a little bit. You just want it up just a little tiny bit. You don't have to go up very much. So one shim ought to bring it up where I want it. Because you don't want your truck to look, you know, flat, low in the middle, like the frame's bent. That's what I'm trying to get at. You don't want the frame to look bent, so you want this to be kind of high. So that's where we're at with that. What we do now is we just cut everything and glue it together. We'll take a little bit of black touch-up paint, touch this up, just so that when you're looking at it from the side, you don't see that nice bright silver in there. So we'll paint that so it blends it in, it goes away, wipe all the dust off of it. And then now it's just a matter of gluing it all together, guys. It's just that simple. I mean, it takes a little bit to get to here. Off camera, I spent probably 15-20 minutes trying to cut this and shave it down with my knife and try to make it look as pretty as I could. And then cutting this front piece off takes a couple of seconds. You know, and then grinding this off took you a few minutes. I mean, especially when you're done with a Dremel, it gets really hot. You need to stop. Best part about living in the Northeast in the wintertime is I just crack my window and set it there on the windowsill, and it cools it off within seconds. So, like I said, we're just in the gluing stage, guys, and this won't take much longer, and this truck will just about be done. What do y'all think of that? Then we'll have us another 2020 Chevy Flatbed. I'll check back in with you here once I get it all glued together, and we'll go from there. So, I thought about it, and I thought maybe I'd show y'all how I glue my stuff together here, in case anybody was curious. So, again, I use Seal-All. That's just what I like to use. You can use any glue you'd like. I just prefer to use the Seal-All. I just use a toothpick. Put a little bit on here, little layer. And then we glue our piece of shim to that. Again, we don't want our shim sticking out too far because we don't want it to be in the way of our bed when we glue our bed on. So we're going to glue this on in two sections. We'll glue the front on the cab, we'll glue the cab to the chassis, We'll give that a couple hours to dry, and then we're going to come back and we're going to glue the bed onto the chassis. So what I'm doing is the front rivet, put a generous amount of glue there, maybe a little bit more. I don't want this to come apart. And then we're going to put some glue on the front, where the front windshield is, the post for the front windshield. Put another generous amount onto that. Be careful not to get this on your truck, because this stuff will peel the paint off and you will be 3 shades of mad. Got a little piece of paper towel over here. We'll wipe off the excess glue. I don't know why I did that, because I forgot to glue this part. So put a little glue on here. So those are our 3. I'm going to put another little dab on that front rivet itself, just to make sure we get plenty of contact in here. We don't ever want this thing to come apart. What's the only drawback is if you ever want to take it apart, you're going to play... I'm trying to keep from cussing here. You're going to have a hard time, let's put it that way. So, we have glue on our rivet. We have glue on our windshield post, you can see. We have glue on the back. We put a little extra glue on this rivet just because we want to make sure that we get good contact there, because it's important to get that contact there. So now we just set it down on the truck, or the chassis, pop it into place, very slowly slide it back a little bit. Ooh, we got a little bit of glue puked out there. Let's get that out of there before it ends up in the paint. Alright, so I got a little bit of glue right there. So we're going to peel all that glue out of there, because again, like I said, we don't want that on our paint. That'll ruin this truck, and that would make me mad, because this is the last one of these I have. I don't have another one yet. I got to get some more. These Ertls seem to be a pretty good truck to build with. Okay, so we got our excess glue out of there. So now the other thing we need to do is we need to line up our chassis side to side so that it's centered on the truck. And then we want to look at both sides, make sure that the wheel is dead center of the fender wheel on both sides. And then we just, again, want to make sure it's straight here. And then you want to look back here. You want to make sure that you keep this thing nice and square. Again, I know my camera's not the best, but I got it nice and tight in the back, so it should be good and square. So now we got that glued on. Let me fuss with it here for a minute. And that's the other thing. You're going to fuss with it here and there for a little bit till you get it set where you want and it dries. The Seal-All is pretty good as a contact adhesive. It sets pretty fast, but you still got to tinker with it. Every once in a great while, I've had a problem with this, as when it dries, it shrinks a little bit, and sometimes it'll pull, especially on mirrors. You got to watch when you glue mirrors on, because those are easy to pop off. Matter of fact, let me show you all how to get these mirrors out of here. See this little black dot right there? You have that on both sides. What I do, since that's where it's glued in, I'll take my hobby knife and I'll just cut that tab off of there. Cut as much of that off of there as I can without cutting my finger, because that would be bad. So take a little couple of cuts there, scrape off that plastic, get it all the way down to the metal. This way you know you got it. Sometimes, most of the time, they're a little easier than this one. This one's just being stubborn. Then you come to the other side, cut that one off too. And the reason you cut these off is it makes it easier. I use an awl, because if you just try to take, say, a pair of cutters or a pair of pliers and try to pop this off, you're probably going to snap it right there. You're going to snap it right here, and you're going to lose half your mirror. So the way I do it is, now that I have cut the, oh, look at there, I've done cut myself. I'm blooding all over the place. Now that I've already cut that, take my awl, real sharp point. Well, not super sharp. You can see I've used this thing for everything. Stick it right where the mirror is with your thumb, and then hold your other two fingers and push. There, you hear that pop? We just popped the mirror out. Oh, y'all, I'm gonna lose a finger. I cut my finger. So now we come over here. Sometimes they don't come out so easily. Sometimes you gotta fight and force and cuss and all kinds of stuff. That one came out pretty easy. There's the other one. So now, there's the mirrors. Get rid of the blood. I'm bleeding a lot because I take a baby aspirin every day, so it's kind of like a blood thinner. So don't worry about it, me bleeding like a stuck pig. I'll survive. It'll quit in a minute. So there, now we got the mirrors off. So now what we got to do, guys, is just glue this truck together. Well, finish gluing it together. Everything's set here nice and pretty. Looks good there. As you can see, we're all centering our fender well, which we want to be. Center there. Oh, I'm sorry, center there. And you look at the front tires are nice and centered. Look underneath. Make sure everything, I know it's too close to the camera. You can't tell, but you want to try to make sure it's square. Let me get another little piece of rag out here before I have blood all over everything. I don't want to get blood on a new truck. My DNA will be with this truck for the rest of its life. We don't want that. Okay. So, there we go. We're glued on. We're going to let this dry for a couple of hours so that it's good and set. And then we'll come back and we'll start putting the bed on. Man. So, real quick here, while the cab is drying, take a toothpick, dip it into a little bit of flat black paint. Push this bottle out of the way without spilling it. Just ever so gently, just rub your toothpick down along the spot where you cut. Try not to get it on the front. Then again, dip it back in there, paint one more time, and come back up the other side. That wasn't enough that time. There we got some. So yeah, cover all that up real gentle like. Make sure you get all the way to the bottom. Touch the sides up a little bit if you need to. Sorry, I know I'm out of your... You can't see what I'm doing. So yeah, touch that all up. Once that dries, you'll never know it. And we're going to paint the bottom separately because you can see there's some white edges. We'll have to touch that up too. Yeah, we'll get that. Okay, I'll be back. Alright, y'all. Now we're to the point that we are going to glue this thing together. There's a little more light, that might help. So what we got to do now that we've got the cab glued on, you see this is kind of flimsy. This is real flimsy. The only thing supporting all of this back is just this chassis, and we've cut so much off of it, we've weakened it. So we need to strengthen this whole thing back up, and the way we're going to do that is with glue, believe it or not. So when we glue the cab on, or the bed on here, we put that down and we slide it all the way up to the front of the truck. And then we want to double check both sides. I'm sorry, this is double check both sides for your reveal on the side of the cab to make sure that it's dead center. So in order to glue this on and make it stronger, now this part is glued to the bottom of the chassis down here at the bottom with my white shim I got down there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some glue on the front of here, which is going to stick it to the back of the cab. Then we're going to put a little glue on the bottom rail, which will stick it there. And then we'll just dab glue across the whole top of the chassis here and there, which will glue the whole thing down. Once we set it on, we'll be good to go. Alright, y'all. So we are all glued together now. And she's definitely stiffened up a lot. There's hardly any play in it at all. That's what that glue does for you. I decided I don't think I'm going to do running boards on this one, because I did the running boards on the last one and want them to be a little bit different. So I think we're going to delete the running boards on this one, which means that the only thing really left to do to this is a little bit of touch-up paint. Get my little pointer out here. So there's a little touch-up paint here under the toolbox, which I should have painted before I put it back together, but I was trying to do a video, so I was rushing. So I got to go back and touch that up. Got a little bit of touch-up here to get. Everything back here don't look bad. There's a little touch-up here in the back corner, which is all minor. Other than that, that's just about it. Might do a little touch-up in here behind the wheels, just so that you don't see that white plastic from where I cut it. You see a little bit up in here. So we'll touch that up with a little black paint, and this one will be done. Good thing with this one is we don't have to put mirrors on it. But what we will do is we'll go in here and we'll come on the back side of this mirror, and we'll put a little bit of chrome on here just so it at least looks like a mirror on the back side. Alright guys, so that is how I built my 2020 Chevrolet, and I combined an Ertl with a green light. Y'all got any questions, let me know down below, and I'll try to answer them the best I can. Y'all have a good day. Bye.